Chapter 6 is about social media and e-commerce. So we just talked about the web and the internet in Chapter 5. Chapter 6 really is a result of the technology that allows computers to communicate with each other. So it's kind of talking about that. The first part of Chapter 6 is looking at some of the different types of social media that exist, and then the different ways that you can conduct business online because of the internet. And then we'll look at the way that the businesses that use the internet are using cloud services, and the way that individuals can use those services as well. Social media basically refers to any kind of interaction that takes place because of the media that's available, like the internet. Some of the things to think about when you're thinking of communicating online are that you can't completely control your privacy. All the information that you put online can potentially be accessed by someone, even if it's a secure website. And you should be aware that only the information that you have the legal right to share, you should share online. So if you're thinking about doing business online, for example, you have to consider things like privacy rights. If you're a school, there's certain information that you can't put online. So those are some things to consider, even if it's just casual discussions on Facebook or posting things to YouTube. Different kinds of social media. Social networking is essentially what you do on Facebook. It's a website where you can share information, where you can communicate with others. You can post stuff, people comment on it. Social bookmarking is another kind of service where people who have common interests can share information. So if you participate with any professional networks, or you belong to a club or an organization, you might subscribe to a service where those kinds of resources get shared amongst the members. And then another type of social media is called blogging. Blogging has actually gotten very popular because of the rise in the internet use, and it's sort of turned into like magazines online, where an individual who has an interest in a certain topic or has become an expert kind of just posts online journals and online articles, and people can subscribe and follow those blogs. And advertisers have even gotten connected with bloggers, maybe even more so than they are with magazines now. So some bloggers are that's their full-time job. Other kinds of social media, when you're thinking about information, wikis are a way to collaborate. Wikipedia is an example of a wiki. It gives the people who are using that page the access to updating and editing the information that's there. This is one of the reasons why Wikipedia and other sites like that are not really considered good places for research, because pretty much anybody can edit the information. Media sharing is a way to share other types of information besides print. So YouTube is an example where you can put videos online. There's lots of different places where you can post podcasts or other types of information that's not in a text format. Social reviews are sites like Yelp or Angie's List or TripAdvisor, sites where people who use services can contribute reviews and share information about what companies they liked and what companies they didn't like. People can go to those sites and find out where they can eat if they're in a certain area. And then finally, social media allows you to create events and invitations online. So there's a site, for example, called Evite, where you can set online invitations, and you can also create online meetings. So there's GoToMeeting.com, for example. If you want to be able to meet with a group but not be in the same location, it sort of allows you to collaborate via like a video chat. The other thing that you can do to share information and connect with people is to create your own website. And there's lots and lots and lots of website builders that make it really, really easy. Weebly, for example, is a site. You can either use the free version or you can pay for extra space on the server. And you can create a page where you post whatever information is important and interesting to you. and other people can visit your site and interact with you that way. The convenience that a website offers is that it's flexible. You control what kind of content you want to put on it. You get to control how much or how little information goes there. So you don't have some of the limitations that a site like Facebook might impose when you want to put information out there. Creating a website, especially if it's for business purposes, requires some thought into how you design it. Not necessarily just how it looks, but where stuff is located, how information is linked to your website, so that as people go to find stuff about you, they can find it easily and it's easy to navigate. Some things to consider are if you want to have someone else create it for you, or are you going to use a website creator like Weebly? If you don't have a whole lot of experience, even if you do use Weebly, it might be helpful to have somebody who's able to sit and guide you through the process of creating the website. And if you have enough computer knowledge and you're comfortable enough, there are even software programs you can download which use HTML, computer language, to create your site. Social networking allows you to connect with people both for personal and business related purposes. So Facebook is an example of one which businesses are starting to use a lot more, but its main purpose was initially to allow individuals to connect with one another. When you create an account on Facebook, you create a friends list, or you start to build your friends list so you can invite others to be your friends and join your group. And then you can connect to them, so every time they post, you see what they write, and you see what, and they see what you write. The news feed is that list of information, so every time one of your friends posts, it'll show up in your news feed. And as you scroll through the different posts, you can like things, which basically creates a link and lets the person who posted know that you saw the post, or you can comment even if you have an opinion, or you have something to share related to another person's post. LinkedIn is another type of social networking site, and it's used mostly for business purposes, so it's a professional network. It allows you to post information about your job and your resume, and it allows you to connect to people that you either have business relationships with or that you would like to have business relationships with. So it's a nice way to do online networking and be able to broaden your reach if you're a business person. Social bookmarking is something we talked about a little while ago. There's a few different types of sites. Pinterest is one. You basically can look through different content about specific topics, and it collects all the information and puts it in one place. There's a few different examples. We won't go a whole lot into what kinds of sites are available, but it's basically a way to organize your information online. And then here's blogging. Most of the time, blogs are maintained by a person about a specific topic, but they don't always have to be. People who have a lot of knowledge or interest in a topic can create a blog and then allow others to comment, which kind of extends the conversation. Twitter is an example of what we would call microblogging, and it's micro because you're limited to 140 characters. And you can just basically post a variety of things. Different people can have Twitter accounts and you can follow them. A lot of news outlets have Twitter accounts where they post updates. So if you subscribe to Hawaii News Now, as news happens, they might post or tweet. A tweet is what they call a post on Twitter. Hawaii News Now can do a tweet, and all the people following will get that news update instantly. And then here's the more detailed information about wikis. The skin is the word in green on the slide, and it's just a vocabulary word where it talks about what you see. So it's a set of formatting rules that creates the layout of the page so that you can see information in a certain way. Some of the risks with wikis, and we talked about this a little while ago, the reason why they're not very, they're not always reliable and credible is because anybody usually can have editing rights. So the idea of vandalism related to a wiki is that individuals who may think they know about a topic can make edits or modifications that may be incorrect. And although those errors are easy to correct because anybody can go back in and fix it, sometimes they're not easy to find. So it's not always a good idea to take information only from a site like Wikipedia. You generally want to have other more reliable sources. Media sharing, these are, again, this is another example of the different social networking services we talked about earlier on one of the first slides. Goes into a little more detail. So YouTube is a site where you can share video, and then Flickr is a site for sharing pictures. So one of the things that some people like to do, because picture files are so large and because more and more people have cell phones with cameras and cameras where they upload pictures directly to their computers, rather than making prints and putting pictures in a photo album, they can create electronic photo albums on sites like Flickr, and they can share them with family and friends, and people can kind of all have access to the photo albums you create. Some other examples, Snapfish and Shutterfly, are also sites where you can do that. The other thing that's, aside from social networking and being able to communicate with people for a variety of reasons, the internet has done is that it's changed a little bit of how business gets done. Traditionally, before the advancements in the internet, you would have to, if you wanted to buy something, either go into a physical store or perhaps go and order something from a catalog. And you would go through a paper catalog, either send in an order form or call them on the phone, order your merchandise, and then wait for it to come in the mail. These days, almost every major company and retail outlet has a website where you can go and order things. Amazon has become such a convenient way to shop because you can find pretty much anything, and even though shipping is an expense here in Hawaii, it's still a way to get merchandise that you can't find always in local stores. So the term electronic commerce or e-commerce refers to doing business online. Different types of businesses that you can find: auction sites like eBay. They can be person to person. So I, as an individual, if I have things that I want to sell, I can put them on eBay and have people bid for them. But businesses do a lot of sales on sites like eBay. Online banking has become much more popular, and there are some banks who actually only have online sites. They don't actually have physical locations where you go and pay or actually go into a bank to use their services.
What am I going to wait for?
Online shopping is kind of bumped up with the auction sites. You can buy products through pretty much any retailer's website. Some of the things you'll see when you go to an online store, Walmart, Target, or even more specialized stores. A shopping cart is basically an electronic holding bin. So when you see an item you want, a lot of times there'll be a button that says add to cart. It'll keep track of what you've purchased or what you've clicked on that you want to buy. And before you actually go to pay, you can review all the items in your shopping cart, decide if you want to keep or get rid of anything, and then actually make your purchase. And most sites also store the shopping cart for a specific amount of time. So if you want to shop and you don't get a chance to finish, you can, shut your computer down and come back to the website, and you'll be able to go back to where you were in your shopping cart. The way that the sites work in order to save your information is that they create files called cookies. And they basically store what you've been browsing so that it can customize your experience the next time you log into the website. If you've purchased from a company many times online, Often you can create accounts where it'll store your information, like your address and even your credit card number, so that when you're ready to buy, there's often a one-click purchase button where, as long as you've already put in all your security information, like your address and your zip code and all of that, you click that one-click purchase and it'll process your payment without having to retype all of your information in. In some cases, the company, if it's a small one especially, may not handle their own money transactions. So you might have to go through a company like PayPal, which manages the payment process for the store. So you would make your selections, create your shopping cart, and then you go ahead and click pay, and then it takes you to PayPal, where you enter your credit card information. PayPal processes the payment and then sends it on to the company that you're buying from. Business to business transactions have also changed a lot, because now companies don't have to go through a lot of the paperwork that you had to when you wanted to buy supplies or merchant or purchases for your business. So companies, just like individuals, can do a lot of their shopping online. What's nice is that if they're connected electronically to suppliers, they can even set up their inventory systems to automatically order products that get low in inventory. The vendors can generate and send invoices electronically, and then even payments can get processed electronically. So businesses don't have to have a whole lot of paperwork going back and forth. It also saves time. And if you're using a point of sale system, which is like they use at Longs, and they scan the products as they sell them, that point of sale system tracks inventory, so it's even more accurate than doing like physical inventory counts. So the vendor, whoever is supplying Longs, they automatically know when the supplies are getting low, and they can generate an order and send it out. Business to business transactions are the terms we use to talk about two companies working with each other and selling products back and forth. And that is actually where most of the money that's spent online comes from, is from business to business. The business to consumer market is not as large. Advertising is something that's become, it's changed a lot because of online business. When you go to almost any website, you'll see what are called banner ads or pop-up ads, and those are different companies who have products or services that they want to sell. They create little squares or boxes of information, and then they put it on websites so that they can try to attract customers. Sometimes companies will advertise via email. So anytime you go into a store or go to a website and it asks you for your email address, potentially you're going to start getting junk mail, just like you would get in your mailbox, which is all the different advertisements and specials and all of that stuff. So when you subscribe to things, before you click submit, a lot of times right before the submit button, there's a little checkbox that says whether or not you want to subscribe to information. If you don't want it, make sure you look for that checkbox and uncheck it so that you won't get on these different companies' mailing lists. The different types of ads you see on web pages. Banner ads are normally thin, regular boxes that kind of show up along the sides or the bottom of a website. Pop-up ads actually pop up on your screen as you surf through the web. So you can put on pop-up blockers, which block those types of advertisements. If you are browsing the web and surfing through different sites, if you happen to click on any of those advertisements, that advertiser normally pays a fee to the company whose website the ad popped up on because you clicked on it. That's sort of like, that's their costs for advertising. It's rather than creating a commercial for radio or TV, they're paying for space on a web page. If you're a business and you want to have people find you, there are ways to make it so that your page pops up when someone does a search, like a Google search. Search engine optimization is one way that these search engines do that. It's a process that allows a search engine to analyze what's on a website so that they can make sure the results are more accurate when someone searches for something. There are certain things that that businesses have to consider. One of the terms is white hat SEO, or search engine optimization, and that's basically the ability of a search engine to improve the experience for a user. So the more often you use Google, for example, Google starts to recognize your preferences and the sites that you like the most, and the results you get when you search start to be more customized to your preferences, whether you realize it or not. Black hat SEO, or search engine optimization, um, is designed to exploit a search engine's preferences so that it kind of forces you to see things that maybe you didn't really want to see, in order to direct you to certain web pages. Cloud computing is allowing you to access information online for the purpose of doing something like Google Docs. So when you create a Google account, you have access to what they call Google Drive, where you can store information and you can create documents and slideshows and spreadsheets. And it's a way of keeping your data in a location that's fairly secure and convenient to access. Software as a service is a term that refers to applications that run only in the cloud. So Wiley Plus and SimNet are examples of that. You don't actually have the information on your machine if you're not connected to the internet. You can't run the programs. Google Docs is another example. You have to use it online. You can't be in a Google Doc unless you're connected to the internet. Some of the examples besides Google Docs, Microsoft Exchange. So if you use interactive Microsoft tools like OneDrive, that's an example. Sometimes game services are only online. All the games on Facebook, for example, most of them require you at some point in time to connect to the internet to be able to access like the next level or new worlds in the game. Some of the advantages are that it's a lot cheaper. In most cases, we talked before about hardware, and if you store a lot of information, you need a bigger hard drive. But if you have access to the cloud services like your Google Drive, you can store a lot on the cloud, so it doesn't require you to have as much hard drive space. And it allows you to collaborate. So when we use Google Docs a little bit later, you'll kind of see how you can, as a team, all be working on the same document at the same time, making changes and seeing what each other's thinking, even though you might not be working in the same room. And it really is a effective way to store data. Some of the drawbacks are that you have to connect to the internet. So if you're not connected, you can't access your drive. There are different tools you can use so that your hard drive on your computer and your drive on the web are constantly backing up and syncing, so that if you're not connected, you can access your files. But that's something that you need to set up and be aware of. Because the information is housed online, there's always a risk of security breaches. Hackers can hack into the server and be able to get information. And sometimes, because of the limitations of the cloud storage, some tools and features aren't always available. So Google Docs, for example, doing a Word document has a lot more features than doing a Google Doc. And that sort of leads into the second half of chapter 6, which is talking about security and privacy. So because of all of the growth in the use of the internet for computing and storing information, people have to be a lot more considerate about how to secure their data and pay attention to privacy and privacy rights. So some of the different concepts in the second half of chapter 6, we're going to look at some of the words related to online security and the different kinds of threats that you have to be aware of, and how to protect yourself against those threats. So 3 basic vocabulary words. A threat is anything that causes harm. So it doesn't really mean anything different when we talk about it in terms of computers than when we talk about it in real life. And the other does vulnerability. So vulnerability are any weaknesses that you are exposed to because of the way your information is online. And then a countermeasure is any things that you do to avoid a threat. So again, none of these words really mean anything different when we talk about them related to computers, except that there are different types of threats and vulnerabilities when you're talking about a computer than when you're talking about people. Some of the threats, power problems, is anytime you're dealing with electronics, if there's power fluctuations, then it could cause your information in your computer to not work properly. If the power goes off and you have a power failure, then whatever you're working on, if you haven't saved it, may be lost. And that actually happens sometimes in places where your data gets stored. So sometimes there's major power outages in a location where the server is, and then you can't access that information till those computers come back online. Some of the causes, electrical storms, if you're using high demand equipment, and this is usually if you're in an office or a business setting. And then old wiring, bad electrical outlets, all of those things can cause issues with the power. Some of the things to avoid, we talked about these a little bit in the other chapter. Having a good surge protector or a backup with a backup battery is a good idea. So we call that an uninterruptible power supply. It provides some power in the event that the power goes out, gives you some time to save and shut your computer down properly. A surge protector or surge suppressor just basically protects against power surges. It doesn't have backup battery necessarily, so if you didn't save something and the power goes out, it won't protect your data from being lost, but it will protect against the motherboard frying because of a massive surge of power. Another thing that might happen, because a lot of our devices now are mobile and portable, are theft. So someone can take your computer or your tablet or your phone, and if all of your information is stored on the device, then you pretty much lose it all. So something to think about is always backing up your data to a secure location that you keep, or backing up to the cloud somehow, so that if your computer or your hard drive ever gets lost, you can access whatever was saved on it. And this is especially true with a lot of people lose a lot of pictures and videos. So, we don't all keep hard photo books anymore like we used to, photo albums. They're all online. If you don't back up those photos somewhere, either to the cloud or have a flash drive or a CD somewhere with all those photos, then if your computer gets lost or stolen, then you might lose all of those, which is, for some people, pretty devastating because they have a ton of family photos on their computers. Other things are accidents. Accidents happen. You can spill something on your computer or drop it on the ground, and that might make your computer completely unrepairable. So it's always a good idea to have a backup your system in case something like that does happen. If you decide to store data on a external storage device like a CD or a DVD or a flash drive, make sure that you store them properly, because CDs and DVDs can get scratched, which makes them unreadable. Flash drives are small, so they can get lost easily. So you want to make sure that you take care of whatever things you're storing your data on. And then keep your hardware, like your laptop, somewhere where it's dry and dust-free. And then try to keep them away from other large electrical equipment. There's a lot of components that maybe get hot, and it might damage your computer if you put it on, say, a big TV that gets warm. It's always a good idea to make sure you keep your computer clean, because this will prevent the accidents from happening and damaging your machine. Liquids It's always a good idea not to have drinks near your computer. If you do happen to spill something, you should probably turn your computer off right away and wipe it down, especially unplug it. Dust can cause your computer to start acting strange because, like I said in the other chapter, the system is open. It's not completely solid, so dust can get in, and that might make your machine not run properly. It's a good idea to try with one of those dust compressed air cans to dust your computer. And then finally, computers can get overheated because of they're made of metal and plastic, and inside the system unit, all of those pieces are really, really close together. If air is not flowing through properly, or you leave it out in the sun or on top of a hot surface, it could overheat your computer. It could have components in it that melt. That might cause your computer to lose all your information because it can't work properly. If you go online a lot, another threat is something called malware. We talked a little bit about malware when we were talking about software. Malware is a kind of software that basically does malicious things to your computer. So viruses have kind of been lumped into this category of malware. A virus, just like a virus that you get sick from, attaches to something and then gets inside of your computer and starts to infect it. And it basically replicates just like a virus cell does in your body, and it messes with the instructions that your computer needs to follow to operate. A worm is a program that kind of can get in on its own. It's self-replicating. And so when you go to download something, for example, you might inadvertently download a worm that can infect your machine. A Trojan horse is another type of malware that can get into your system, but it doesn't self-replicate. So you need to have another program that's running in order for the Trojan horse to work. The reason why because people are the ones who create these things. People create malware. Sometimes it's to steal information. So hackers might use malware to be able to gather personal data about people. Sometimes it's to do the opposite and destroy data. And sometimes it's just for the purpose of hijacking and getting control over a computer and how it functions, for a variety of different reasons. Some of the things you might notice if your computer's been infected by malware, you might see unwanted advertising. So if you've turned all your software off and the only thing you have on is the computer and you have the desktop showing, and you get all of these different ads popping up, there's a good chance you have some kind of malware on your system. If you have spyware, which is a kind of malware that actually either steals information or monitors your behavior, then you might kind of see things running kind of strange. It's gathering data that they save, the spyware saves, and it will basically allow your computer to get hijacked by a couple of different things. Zombies are what we call infected computers, and then botnets are networks of infected computers. So when viruses get sent out in mass, it causes a network of all these sick computers. To protect yourself against malware, you probably can do the best thing is to avoid sites that you're not familiar with. Don't download anything that you're not familiar with, and be careful on different social networking sites, because hackers and people who create malware know that as you go onto these social networking sites, when you click on a variety of links, it might infect your machine. It's always a good idea to have some kind of anti-malware software. Malwarebytes is a good one. It's a little different than antivirus software. It's looking for specifically these malware programs. Sometimes antivirus programs don't search for all different types of malware. Most computers have a firewall software already within the operating system that allows you to block certain types of programs from running on your machine. And then it's a good idea to have some sort of cleanup utility where you every so often clean up your computer. Other kinds of threats besides the computers getting infected because of social networking and the communication between people online, cyber terrorism and cyber crime is a lot more prevalent. Cyber terrorism is when people attack a country, so these are usually big scale government types of things. And then cybercrime is basically anybody who's using a computer to carry out criminal acts, like if you use your computer to steal from others, or if you use your computer to bully or harass someone. A hacker is someone who illegally gets into other people's computer systems to perform illegal acts. Some of the ways that hackers gain access is by sending out these malware software programs. They can make systems vulnerable and allow them to get access to information in computers that are not normally accessible. There's different ways that hackers can get password information and other information they need to get access to people's personal information. Sniffing is the term that talks about all of these different methods. Password sharing, if you accidentally disclose your password. Password guessing is basically what it says, the hacker's guessing. And then password capture is a way for a hacker to gather your password using a software program that captures your keystrokes, so they can tell what passwords you typed in. And social engineering is another way that hackers can gain access, is basically trying to get to know you and convincing you that through misrepresentation or fraud that you should give them your information so they can log into accounts and create accounts in your name. In order to prevent some of those threats, it's a very good idea to restrict access to your data. And so you can create accounts on your computer so that you have to type in a password in order to get into certain files or even to get into your machine. When you get into public spaces especially, you want to turn off the sharing feature. And if you are not sure how to do that, that's something that might be good to learn, especially if you use your computer in public spaces a lot. Because once you get into a public space where you connect to the internet, if your files are shared or in the shared mode, then people can access them. When you send information online, it's a good idea to always use secure sites or figure out whether or not your data is encrypted so it's not accessible by others. And then if you're going to be using a computer and you know that you leave it on all the time with the screen open and you walk away from your machine a lot, have a password protected screensaver. So after a couple minutes, when your screensaver comes on, in order to get back into your machine, you have to type a password so that people can't just get into your computer when you step away. Firewall is another type of software. It's actually a utility that comes with most operating systems that prevents unauthorized access. So it basically is like a gateway into your computer from the network. Sometimes firewalls, people turn them off because it limits what kinds of sites they can access. But it leaves you open. If you don't have your firewall turned on, it leaves you open to threats. And then different utilities have backup services, like Microsoft or Windows and Mac OS have a backup utility that allow you to back up your machine every so often. And you can choose whether you want to back up to an online storage site or onto like a flash drive. Identity theft is another thing that happens because of the internet and because of the access to your data. Any kind of personal data that's out there to be stolen can be a cause of identity theft. Some of the ways that criminals might get your information if they are watching you. So again, in public spaces, at an ATM machine, people can be looking over your shoulder, looking at what you're typing in. Sometimes it's listening. So the term snagging refers to listening to people talk and trying to gather your personal information that way. And then sometimes people will go through your trash to try to find information that they can use either to log into your accounts or create accounts in your name. So dumpster diving is made it really important to shred or get rid of your information more carefully and not just throwing it out in the trash. Some ways to protect your privacy. Data mining is a term that refers to companies sifting through data to look for patterns. So if you subscribe to like credit reporting agencies, they might be tracking you and telling you if they notice any suspicious changes to your accounts. So you want to be careful about what kinds of companies you send your information out to. And then pay attention to public records because there's information available to anybody who wants to view them in certain places. And you should have the control about what kinds of information people can access. Some of the technical things that are needed in order for all of these cyber threats are, we talked about cookies when we were talking about surfing the web. As you do things online, little bits and pieces of information are stored, and those are called cookies. Normally, they are not a threat. Websites that you frequent use cookies to be able to customize your experience so that you don't see things you don't like and you see things you do like. However, sometimes hackers and cyber criminals use cookies to gather data and follow you. Web bugs are different files that can be on a web page or in an email that connect you to malicious software. So always be careful of files that you're not sure where they came from or whether or not you actually meant to download them. And then spyware is something we talked about a little earlier. It's a way for people to collect information. It's a software that tracks what you do on your computer. And again, just like cookies, sometimes spyware is legitimate because the companies that you do business with all the time use the data to make your experience better, but they can be malicious. These are a few other terms related to cyber threats. Spam is the term that we use for junk mail that comes to your email. Sometimes hackers use what's called phishing. And you might get emails where companies are asking you to submit personal information. Most companies don't do that, so it's never a good idea to send email replies with personal information from somebody who's asking for it. A lot of times if a company is going to need your information, you'll get some kind of letter or they'll tell you to log into your account. They'll never normally ask for it via email. And then sometimes spoofing is when a company or a user provides false information. Sometimes they even create alias websites which look almost like the original so that they can collect your information. So you just have to be aware of places that the sites that you visit online and make sure that they're legitimate. And then every so often it's a good idea to manage the cookies and spam that you have. So you want to create settings in your internet browser like Google Chrome or Internet Explorer so that the cookies that are that may be malicious get deleted, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not it's sorting through your data. You can manage your pop-up blocker settings to block certain things. You can make it really strict so that you don't see any pop-ups, and you can limit what sites you want to allow pop-ups from. And then you can actually do some filtering so that your email folder doesn't get filled up with spam. You can send certain email messages directly to the junk mail folder, and some email programs do it automatically. The problem is that sometimes things go to your spam that really are legitimate. So someone might tell you they emailed you something and you never saw it. You might have to look in your spam or junk mail folder to see if you ever got it. And that's essentially chapter 6.